Welcome back to AnglingBuzz Ice. I'm your host Jake Wallace, and today I'm going to run through my top 6 baits for ice fishing. I've got 3 for walleyes and 3 for panfish, and I'm going to talk about why I use them and where I use them. Now starting with walleyes. Now the bait I've been starting with just about every time I've been out this year is the Northland coffin spoon in a 1/8 ounce, hot pink, and it is just a deadly spoon for walleyes, right? You can fish it in sand, you can fish it over weeds, you can fish it over rocks. I can fish it deep, I can fish it shallow. You tip it with a minnow head, you're good to go. And what I really like about the coffin spoon is it's got everything I look for in a spoon. It's got a dense body, right? It reads great on your transducer. It's got a nice shape, so it does flutter when it's going down there, but it doesn't do too much. It's got a flapper blade, and it really calls those fish in from a distance. And this hot pink's just been dynamite. I mean, it's just a great color all around. But that's what I'm starting with. And my other 2 baits that really been working this year are the rattlin roach spoon by VMC. Now this bait I've been using in kind of specific scenarios, and typically I'm using this bait when the walleyes are really aggressive or when I'm fishing walleyes over mud. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, the shape, and then the biggest reason is that feathered treble. Now it's got a great shape, it's got a really fluttering action when it's going down there. It does have a rattle. But the real key to this whole bait is that feathered treble. I would say a lot of the fish I do catch on this, they've been without live bait, and it's all because of that treble. It really undulates and moves underwater, and it's got a great action. You don't need to pair it with live bait. I would say at least 50% of the fish I've caught on this don't have live bait on it, which is, you know, kind of unique when it comes to walleye fishing. So this has been a really killer for me this year. And again, I'm using this on mud flats and when the fish are super aggressive in low light periods. And my last bait that's been really crushing it this year is the number 5 jigging wrap in chrome perch. And I use this in pretty specific situations. The first is whenever I'm fishing really pressured bodies of water. You know, lakes like Leech, Mille Lacs, Lake of the Woods, Winnie. Now I tip it with a minnow head, and the real key to this bait is you can't work it like you would open water. You have to be subtle with it. Right? The key is to just bounce that rod tip, and that bait just rocks back and forth in place, and it is a deadly trigger for walleyes, especially when they're really pressured and they're just seeing a lot of spoons. So that's what I like to go to. And that chrome perch, I mean, it is a great color. Anywhere I go, that's what walleyes are feeding on. So that's been the best 3 walleye baits for me this season. Now on the panfish side, my number 1 bait I always start with the Clam Pinhead Pro Spoon. Now this is the jointed and pink color. It is, I mean, it catches everything. Bluegills, crappies, perch, works great. You don't need live bait with it. It's got that flapper blade tail. And the real key with this bait is you gotta work it aggressive, right? It's the opposite of the jigging wrap. You really wanna keep this bait moving, constantly bringing it up slowly, and the fish just crush it. If they're getting sluggish, I will tip it with a wax worm, but you really don't need to do it. But this has been just a dynamite bait for me. Now, in certain situations, when I'm looking to key in on really big crappies, that's when I'm using the Clam Tika Flash in their 1/16 ounce size. Now, Glow Wonderbread's been a dynamite color for me this year. But what's great about this bait is it's got a horizontal profile, it's got a big profile, and it's got a minnow profile. Right? So it imitates small bait fish that crappie are feeding on. You can tip it with a wax worm, but you don't need to. But this bait works great. It's heavy, it gets down fast, right? If I'm trying to track down fish, this is the bait I like to use because you can just open the spool, bomb it down there, it gets right in front of the fish. Big baits, big fish, that's what I'm going for. And then the last panfish bait that, to be honest, when the fish won't bite anything else, this is what they're biting. Now it's the Northland Mud Bug in a 1/28 ounce with a Super Glow Wonder Bread color. Now you tip this with a wax worm and there isn't a fish that's gonna turn it down. And I'm talking, you know, lethargic crappies and bluegills. When they're in a negative mood, this is the bait you wanna use, and you barely wanna move it, right? I'm dropping this down there and I'm just setting it right in front of them, and I'm just watching that tip. And as soon as that tip even twitches, boom, I'm setting the hook. And this has been a killer bait for lethargic panfish. Now you can fish these baits anywhere. You can fish them in the shallow weed flats, over basins, deep weed beds. They work everywhere. And these have been my 3 best panfish baits this season. And those are my 3 best walleye baits this season. If you don't have any, I highly suggest you get some because I promise they've been working great.